solutions. In the field, delivering top-notch service, enhancing productivity, and reducing downtime. In the data center, a part of the growing digital document revolution. In the world of business, supporting entrepreneurs and helping companies grow. In the forefront of technology, developing cutting-edge document management solutions. So if you think you know Dex Imaging, you don't know Dex.
We at WOCA recognize the importance of voting. That's why we're offering all the candidates an opportunity to come on the air and explain why they feel you should cast your valuable vote for them. On Friday, August 27th, Manal Fakori and Kent Gwynn, two candidates for mayor of Ocala, will be in studio. This information is brought to you by WOCA The Source and hopes that you will vote and that this will help in making your decision come September 21st.
Now you've done it. Have you lost your mind? He's back. And you're listening again. A legend in his own mind. Don't believe me? Just ask him. Here's Tom Schmitz live on WOCA. The Source.
Welcome back. Ocala Talk. City candidate forums. It is time for District 5, being contested by former Councilmember Jim Hilty and Greg Steen. Both in studio with us right now. Gentlemen, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Make sure everybody, okay. Look, the right microphones are on. I got lucky.
First time for everything.
What we're going to do with the pattern we're going to follow is I'll give each one of you 1 minute to tell who you are, why you're running for office. Then we'll go with some questions. Neither one of you have had the questions ahead of time. We'll have a couple questions from listeners. We'll have some questions from me, and then we'll end it with giving you 1 minute each to wrap up to ask people to vote for you on September 21st. Good with each of you?
Sure. Absolutely.
All right, let's start. Greg, even though Jim's been a councilman before, you've been running for 17 years, it seems like now. So I'll let you go first.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on this morning. My name is Greg Steen, running for City Council, District 5. I was born and raised in Ocala, so my roots are here. My grandparents are buried here. I'm not going anywhere, so I'm all in. I'm just an average blue-collar guy, and I think that's what we need is down to earth and someone that's reachable, and that's what I want to be for everyone is West Side Ocala, East Side Ocala, doesn't matter. Come see me. Let's get Ocala going again.
Mr. Hilty?
Thanks, Tom, for having us. It's wonderful to be here. I'm running again for a District 5 seat because I served once, and then I see some things now that are challenging towards the city, and I believe my experience within the finance industry will help look at the budget, try and figure out where we get money. There are challenges in the workforce, whether it be firemen, police, healthcare, sanitation workers. It's not unique to Ocala, it's worldwide, so we need to really be strategizing, trying to figure out how we can do the best to keep our employees happy, healthy, and gainfully employed. So that's one of the reasons why I'm running.
Okay, let's start. We'll start with you, Mr. Hilty.
Sure.
There's been talk about that the council had recently had a group of guys who were very pro-fire. They were very pro-fire department. Everybody's pro-fire department, police department, but these guys were more so even than normal. And now it looks like there's quite a few contractors and construction guys that are running for council, and people say that'll be a voting block. Do you think that there's a need to make sure we don't have a certain amount of type of people on the council at one time, or is that much to do about nothing?
No, I think absolutely we do. Diversity amongst anything is really appropriate no matter where you are. So diversity amongst the council members, having people from construction industry, finance, banking, things of that nature are really appropriate. This is how you get your balance of power because none of us have all the right answers. But again, by being able to share things on the dais, because that's the only time that council members can really get together and talk under the sunshine laws. So I think it's really appropriate to use the expertise of a wide variety of people to be able to make the right and balanced decisions for the city.
Greg Steen, right now it is a crux time for our city. There are 5 seats up for election. It is a turning point for the city. What do you see as the main issue? If you had to pick one main issue, what would be your one main issue that has caused consternation at the city that needs to be addressed right away?
I definitely feel it would be staffing as far as city employees, utility, police, fire. That's the backbone of the city. So I think if we can get that fixed right there, then we can start working on other issues and taking care of that. But if we lose our infrastructure of the city and our employees, then the city is going to fall apart.
Okay, we'll keep you, Greg, keep you in the hot seat for a minute. How do we, because, and Mr. Hilton, you'll answer this exact same question, how do we stop the moniker of training city for Florida? Because Ocala has become, and Marion County too, has become known as a training center. We train our fire, we train our police, we train our linemen. 7 years to train a lineman, by the way, through apprenticeship and everything. And then they go to better opportunities. What do we need to do to address the situation of being the training ground for the rest of Central Florida?
Very good question. Thank you for bringing that up. Matter of fact, the Labor Council union did endorse me for that. I'd have some ideas about retention. Definitely need to look at the retirement packages. That is a large complaint among. We need to look at funding. Some of our people are driving to Gainesville to work at Gainesville PD right now. We need to fix that. But not only that, as far as going back to the management, we were at the union the other night talking to a lot of the employees, and I also been an electrical contractor. I'm on ground a lot, talking with them, and they said actually their biggest complaint is the micromanagement. So as far as the money and pay scale, it definitely needs to be looked at, but you also need to let the guys do their job.
Mr. Hilty, the same exact question to you.
Yeah, to your point, having served on what they call the FMPA, which is the affiliate where Ocala gets its electric utility, we're one of 13 cities. Having heard from those people that Ocala is a great training ground for our source for linemen, that's been a situation for a long time. I think we did handle that for a while, and then now all of a sudden we have what I call a lack of trust. Again, with the employees not being able to trust upper management, and there is a bit of micromanagement that's going on. As far as retirement planning, it's always a key issue. I spent 30 years in the finance business trying to help people navigate the system, and there are a tremendous amount of unfunded pensions out there, and that's some of the reasons why, even before I came on council, there were changes to the retirement plan. But obviously that is something that people are looking for right now, because they are starting to realize they need that growth for their future.
It is a challenging time right now with retirement, the way you see the markets go up and down, the uncertainty in Washington that doesn't help at all. But how do, Mr. Hilty, I ask you this, how do we, with all the background noise that's going on, how do we get across to the people that are very important to our infrastructure that not only are we here for them, but we know morale's low? What would you do if you got on council to help bridge the gap to bring morale back up and get people to where they may be satisfied with where they're at? Because you can't just throw money at it. There's a lot more issues besides just throwing money at it. What other things can we do to address this situation?
Absolutely. Money is not the main source. It is obviously something that people need to have a good life, and want to continue to desire to work where they're at. Again, it goes back to the upper management making sure they're involved and making sure they pay attention to what their issues are, not only just listening to them, but then going back up to City Hall and not doing anything about that. While I was on council, there were many recognition breakfasts that were held by both the sanitation as well as the electrical workers. I'm not 100% sure whether that's still going on and whether it's participated by the upper management people, but that was well received. When they get some personal recognition for something they do, whether it be a letter coming in from a local citizen or some observation by their manager or something like that, recognizing them for going that extra step. Those are the things that we need to do to kind of increase the morale of the city, and that will keep people in place.
Greg Steen, morale's at a low point right now, especially at the fire department and the electrical department. What would you do if you became on council to help bridge that gap to bring morale back up?
Well, I think that's what I offer a little bit unique from anyone that's running right now is I started in construction digging trenches. I was the lowest man on the totem pole, out there sweating, talk with everybody. So I have a little different perspective because I'm working from the lowest guy on the totem pole to owning my own company. I understand that you can't just go to upper management and just say, hey, what's the problem? And they tell you what you want to hear, and then you go on. I believe you have to talk to upper management. I believe you have to talk to middle management, and you need to talk to the guys that are all the way down that are out on the ground. So I believe it's boots on, and actually understanding all levels of everyone. Because if you're just talking to the top, that's what you're hearing. So that's, I think, what I offer, is because I've actually been in those guys' shoes.
Let's talk for a minute about an incident that we all have hashed over. It's been talked about ad nauseum. Right as this cycle began, the election cycle began, the firing of Fire Chief Shane Alexander, which, by the way, certainly under the purview of the city manager to do so. City manager has the right to hire and fire anybody that works under the city manager. But the police chief and the fire chief seem to me to be a different animal. The mayor appoints, the city council approves the police chief. If the police chief does something, the mayor can suspend him or her, but council has to have the final say on whether they're removed. But this question is for both of you. We'll start with you first, Mr. Steen. Would you be in favor of looking at how the charter is designed and maybe moving the fire chief under where the city manager can suspend the fire chief, but it would take city council's approval for the fire chief to be fired?
I definitely wouldn't want to mess with the charter too much, but as far as that particular item, I think that might be a good idea, because you're talking about an upper level management. If you had a company that was $100 million in a company, you would not let a manager fire another executive position. That would definitely go before a board or go for the CEO. So I believe that needs to be looked at a little bit.
Mr. Hilty?
Again, same thing. The charter is working well. We need to take a close look at this issue and find out. And truly, it's the voters that decide on this. So it may be putting the referendum on the ballot next year to see what the voters think. But in the interim, we need to review the policies with the city manager as council to make sure that she follows the rules and keeps the council informed. I think that was part of the problem, is that they were not informed as to what was going on. And I think that's truly imperative to have something of that nature.
There was a movement then after this incident where there was a vote taken. Some people say it was a non-confidence vote. No, it was a vote to fire the city manager. It wasn't a non-confidence vote. It was to hire, fire. The city manager prevailed with a 3-2 vote. Without giving perspective on what you would have done in that situation, without giving perspective on what was done in that situation, if you were on council and that situation come up, would you handle it the same way and go with the city charter, or would you think that this was something council had something to do with? Because a lot of people said they voted not to fire her because what she did was perfectly right under the city charter. She did nothing wrong. Mr. Steen?
I definitely believe that is a slippery slope there, but she was within the charter's rights. She did act and did her job. I definitely would want to talk with her and find out more. They definitely have a lot more information than us as a regular citizen would know. So I definitely would want to get the full story before I weighed in too harshly about that, but she was within the charter's rights.
Mr. Hilty?
Again, as you said, she was within the charter's rights. I don't think I would have called for a vote the way it was. You had two embarrassing situations that night that really divided this community. So I think having brought that situation to where they were looking for termination was probably the wrong thing to do. Follow up with a consultation with her, getting more of the facts, if there are more that council didn't have at the time, and having a discussion as a boss to a supervisor would normally have. And then depending on the outcome of that, you move forward. But I think that was just a total embarrassment to the community.
Now it looks like the community's facing another lawsuit because of this. We already have a lawsuit that is pending with an $80 million at stake for how we collected fire fees. There's been numerous lawsuits in the past for stuff such as meeting on the square with religious groups, and the chief of police and the mayor were supposedly leading a prayer group. We got sued. It seems like Ocala stays in court a lot. As a council member, what would you do to address the situations where, Mr. Hilty, I'll go with you, where Ocala seems to be right on that line where a lawsuit is just around the corner, and I don't think that's good for a municipality.
No, it's not good for municipality. Unfortunately, we live in a very litigious society where sometimes if you sneeze the wrong way, you can develop a lawsuit. Going to the $80 million lawsuit for the fire user fee, again, that was something that was put into place many years ago, was working, and then for a year, council decided to suspend it and then brought it back in. It's been found to be an illegal use or a tax or whatever that should not be collected. But during that time period, the service was provided. So, yeah, you're going to have, because this is what attorneys do, is create lawsuits. And just like the panhandling lawsuits and all of that are out there now. So we would try our best to make sure that we're staying within the realm of what our responsibility is, but there's always going to be something. And we know there's a lawsuit possibly coming from either the fire chief or if termination of the city manager happens.
Those are on the horizon.
On the horizon.
Mr. Steen, how would you answer that?
Definitely, I agree with. We live in a society that lawsuits are the way to make money quickly. But I do think we need to build the community together instead of having West Ocala, East Ocala, this religious group, that religious group. I think we all really realize that we're citizens of Ocala and we need to have each other's backs. It doesn't matter what part of town you're in, what social status you're in, what color you're in. We're all citizens, and I think I would like to try to develop some strategies to get everybody on board with that. I do believe, though, with Ocala growing the way it is, it's going to be a major distribution hub. We're going to have outside cities looking in and waiting for us to make the wrong move. So I do believe lawsuits are going to happen, but I do think that we should protect ourselves a little bit better. I think some of the larger issues that we have, we should get some outside opinions on before we act on anything.
One of the biggest problems, some people will tell you, is homelessness in Marion County and Ocala specifically. Some people tell you it's a problem because the homeless are here. Some people tell you it's a problem because we don't do enough to help the homeless that are here. We do have issues. I, for one, was eating in an establishment on the downtown square and had a homeless person come up and ask me for money. I said, I'm trying to enjoy dinner here with my significant other. He goes, well, you're not going to have any damn bread with your dinner. Reached into my basket, took the bread off the table, and went down the sidewalk. Luckily, my significant other just put a hand on my hand and goes, it's just bread. It's not that important. Because both of you know me. It could have been different. But these stories are becoming more and more frequent. Mr. Hilty, how did we get here, and what do we do to solve this problem?
Solving the problem is a national challenge. Ocala has been no different than any other city, although when we look at some other cities, we're not too bad. But, we've been working on trying to solve this problem for many, many years. And just within the last year, there's been some change in the leadership. There was a PPI study that was done, which I shared and chaired a committee on, and we decided that from that, and we needed to change the leadership of the Homeless Council, and there was a combined city-county component that has been built. That is just like 1 year old right now, so there's been a lot of transactions that are trying to help the homeless. There are approximately about 35 agencies within Ocala that do help homeless. And one of the things we've been able to do is bring them together through the continuum of care, where they're now talking to each other, working with each other. In fact, I was on a conference call yesterday, in fact, and it was amazing the way they were starting to share ideas. So we're getting this together. We've got the city and county doing things, so I think we're on the stride. We just need to work towards some other issues that we actually have on the horizon.
Greg, you've seen the homeless population. I don't know if it grows, shrinks, grows. It just looks like it's always here. What would you do as a council member to address this situation?
I would definitely have several conversations with a lot of 501s. For instance, went on a tour the other day of Wear Gloves, and that program is actually amazing. I think we need to have more programs like that. I think we need more halfway houses, possibly a low barrier shelter. Several weeks ago, I did a ride-along with OPD from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., and majority of our time was going around and spinning to see if people were dead or if they were OD'd on the sidewalk. It's a huge problem. We're having it now. Same thing you had. Going downtown, there's people just passed out right on the sidewalks right in the middle of downtown square. So we definitely need to – we've been working on this for several years, but I think it's time we actually take some action.
I'm going to talk about something that is a pandemic, that isn't classified as a pandemic, but it actually is, because if you had a serial killer in our community, and just in the city of Ocala, that had killed 38 plus people in 8 months, the city council would be fired, chief of police would be fired, the mayor would be fired, everybody would be fired. And we had that happen. It's called opioid overdoses and deaths. It is something that's gripped the country, it's gripped the state, it's gripped our city. If you were on council, Greg Steen, you first, if you were on council, What would you do? Because we're already addressing the situation, but what would you do to even more address the situation? Because even though we're addressing it, people are still dying in large numbers.
I definitely think that's going to go along with the homeless population, because a lot of times out there they're trying to self-medicate, trying to escape reality. With those low barrier shelters that we're going to be able to have, more counselors, I think we're going to find a decline in that.
Mr. Hilty, if you were on council, what would you do to address the ongoing pandemic of opioid
Again,
deaths?
when I was on council last, we did help the Chief Graham with the opioid situation by having all of his officers equipped with Narcan, which would sort of hopefully prevent death if they get there in time. It's a very challenging problem that is coming from outside our community. It's a money-making business for a lot of people, and it is a actual problem with the homeless, because if you go down to any of the shelters, you will see the drug dealers hanging outside as the people are waiting to try and get service. The police have been called to those several times. They do what they can. Obviously, when the police show up, the drug dealers disappear.
I got two questions from listeners. I'll give one to you, Mr. Hilty, one to you, Mr. Steen. Mr. Hilty, we'll go for you first. This is from a listener who goes, I own a small business in town, but I do not live in town. But because I'm a small business owner, I spend 16 to 18 hours a day in the city of Ocala, working in the city of Ocala. I only rest 6 to 8 hours a day at my home in the county, yet I have no voting rights in the city of Ocala. I have no power to do anything because I have no representation. How can I become represented? I know I can come talk to council, but how can I be represented when I spend 14 to 18 hours a day in the city at work, not where I live? How can I have representation, or how can my voice be heard more as a small business owner in Ocala?
Well, that's a challenge not only for a small business owner, but also for people that live in some of the enclaves within and around the city. They're actually county residents, but they received city power and things of that nature. First and foremost, obviously, talk to the council person, or all of the council people, actually, because your business may be in one district, which it will be, but there are 5 districts and the mayor, so I would definitely be trying to talk with them to try and seek help on whatever your total situation is. Obviously I can't give you voting rights since you don't live in the city, but I would then use the network influence of your friends if there's something that is really driving you to try and get them to vote the way you feel you should be voting.
Thank you for that. Mr. Steen, another question from a listener. The CEP, it has private membership that range from anywhere from $600 a year up to $25,000 a year for membership. With that being said, and them boasting a large group of businesses that belong to the CEP, why, if at all, should the city have funding? Should the city give any kind of funding to the CEP and subsidies?
I would sit back and I would look at the budget, see what the return on investment is for the city, the growth. I do know before we had the CEP, growth was kind of stagnant. If you look at our city now, there is massive growth. But you bring up a good point as far as the membership dues. I think we should look at the budget and review it.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being candid with your answering us today. Now we'll give you both 1 minute to tell the voters why you think they should vote for you. Mr. Hilty, we'll go with you first.
Okay, thank you. Again, I will fall back on my experience not only in the financial industry, but in the experience I've gained through chairing many committees within this community, both in the arts area, the health area, and a lot of programs within the homeless, which is one of the biggest challenges we have today. After leaving council, I immersed myself into that situation, and we have made some progress, and there is some progress, and there is the ability for a low barrier shelter being built. There's a lot of discussion going on about these things here. So again, I fall back on the experience that I have in multifaceted areas as the reason why I should be elected to this seat. Thank you.
Mr. Steen, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I believe growing up here and seeing the changes in Ocala, living here all my life, being a blue-collar worker, working myself into owning my own business, I have a lot of vested in here. So my heart and passion is with Ocala. I also have 20-some plus years in construction. Right now, Ocala is going through some major growth. I think you need someone on council that actually understands that growth versus just looking at a piece of paper and seeing what the numbers look like. I think you need to understand it from going out to taking a shovel to a finished project and knowing what that project's going to look for 10 years now. The fire department has endorsed me. They have faith to back me. The North Central Labor Union, which is also the Marion County School Board, Lockheed Martin, and the city staff employees have backed me, and the local electrical union has backed me for all of the union workers at the electrical department. So I think I bring a lot of diversity that I could offer to the city.
Thank you. Gentlemen, I want to thank both of you for coming in, being candid with myself and the listeners. And look, I couldn't do what you guys are doing. I couldn't run and have people look into my background and look at this and look at that, and people on Facebook and everything. Tom would not be able to do that for a $200 a month job. So God love what y'all are doing and the commitment you have. I believe both of you think that Ocala that you're going to help improve Ocala. You may have different ideas of how to do it, but at least you both think that Ocala needs to be made better, and you can help do that. Thanks so much for running for office.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's going to close out the city council version of this. We got the mayoral candidates in tomorrow. That should be fun. Stay tuned. You're listening to Ocala Talks. We'll talk to you tomorrow, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM. This is WOCA, The Source.